Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Today we're going to do probably 3 plants. We're going to cover a couple from my spring foraging cookbook. One of them especially, we'll talk about the edible uses for both, but we'll also talk about the medicinal uses for shepherd's purse. It's one of the most important herbs that we need to have in our herbal medicine cabinet. So we'll cover a little on both sides of that one. And from my book, The Medicinal Shrubs and Woody Vines, we'll get into an interesting one. It's going to be citrus in general. My entry in the book is really focusing on bitter orange because that's the one that grows in my region. It's not a very edible orange. It's very medicinal. It is a citrus, though. There are several, of course, citruses. I mean, there's everything from lemons to limes to oranges to satsuma to you name it, right? Tangerines, grapefruit. We're going to talk about kind of more in general on the citruses with some emphasis on the trifoliate citrus or hardy orange, which is really the only citrus that grows naturally in my area or native to my area. Lemons are remarkable. Lemons will not grow in the mountains where I live unless you have a very protected spot or you're growing in a container, you can bring it in. But they'll grow in far more temperate regions than you'll see listed at the nurseries. The nurseries will tell you that this tree is only going to set fruit in whatever climate. I mean, I've seen them growing halfway up the mountain. And what I mean is I live at like 5,000 feet elevation, and there's some lower communities that are really nice. A little more remote, about halfway down the mountain, like 1,500 to 2,000 feet, and I have seen huge bush. Well, I think they may have been pruned to a bush form. Lemon trees, just loaded with lemons. I mean, just amazing. And oddly enough, a lot of nurseries would never recommend you grow it there. Whether they're going to get, I guess we're what, zone 5B, so that's like our low temperatures in the winter will go down like minus 20. So, I mean, halfway up the mountain, they're going down to at least minus 10. And I've never seen these things covered. I've never seen anything. Citrus can be far more hardy than the growers and sellers would recommend. They just don't want to have to take a chance and have to give somebody a refund or, lose a customer. So they kind of err on the side of caution. But if you're in, anywhere that's warmer, there's actually several citrus you can grow. Blood orange, like I said, the satsuma certainly. There's several, 5, 6 of them that you could grow, like in probably anywhere east of Charlotte here in North Carolina, like almost the entire state of South Carolina, certainly the entire state of Georgia, except the small western mountains around Dahlonega and Dawsonville and Young Harris. Alabama, you can grow citrus basically throughout the state. Mississippi, of course, and Florida. And Eastern Virginia, though. Now, if you're going north of there, and I know there's several regions in Tennessee you could grow. So if there's several regions, like hot regions in Tennessee, like Memphis and such, you could certainly grow Tennessee. You could certainly grow citrus up in Kentucky and Ohio and definitely. I think St. Louis might have been one of the hottest places I can remember. I mean, there's certain places in the Midwest that can get really, really hot in the summertime and then cold in the winter. So, check them out and just use some cover, use some protection, and you may be able to do a lot more than you realize. Sepp Holzer is a legend of permaculture. Lives in the Alps, way high in the Austrian or the German Alps. I think it's Austrian. And as a kid, he started finding these little nooks and crannies. And he'd make a little horseshoe enclosure where that side of the mountain, there's much higher elevation than I am, by the way, much colder, but that spot was getting a lot of warm sunlight in the winter, and he started kind of mapping these out in his head, and I guess probably keeping a notebook, though I think he really does most things in his head, and he started growing, even as a child, plants that were not suitable to grow in the Alps, and he grows citrus. I mean, like actual oranges and lemons and such in the high elevations of the Alps, because he finds this little area that's getting a lot of sunlight. It's protected from the wind. It's protected from the frost and the snow. The stone around it is going to really warm up and hold heat during the day. And he does a few things to enhance that, but he doesn't use a lot of cover in greenhouses. So you can really do a lot, believe it or not, even if you're in a place twice as cold as where I live, which is what the Alps would be. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, you're talking like 40, 50 below, and that's Fahrenheit, So, yeah, just you read these gardening books, and they're like, you can only grow this here, you can only grow this here. No, you can really grow things. Whether you're using cold frames and hot boxes, you're using cloches, or you're doing like the Sepp Holzer thing of just finding that one spot that's protected from wind, that gets good sun, that holds heat. Maybe you put some black barrels of water nearby that'll heat up during the day and radiate heat out during the night. Maybe you paint the rocks white to reflect more sunlight. And there's so many things you can do. There really are. I don't know. The experts in gardening give you all these rules, and they're not always right. In fact, they're very often not right at all. So let's start with spring foraging, and we'll start with saxifrage. Now, this is also a medicinal plant. I'm not going to really get into the medicinal uses here on saxifrage. There's two that kind of grow in my area. There's lettuce saxifrage and swamp saxifrage. The swamp one grows more down the swamps, and the lettuce one grows really more along the creeks up here in the mountains. I've heard it called different things, even branch lettuce. I think that's the name for a couple different plants. It's good. I never find a lot of it. Now, every now and then I will find a patch, and I enjoy it, but I think it probably grows more abundantly up north. Mature leaves are a nice pot herb, cooked like any other leafy green. And some folks say when the leaves are young and tender, they can be used in salads. And they can, and that's why it's called sometimes branch lettuce, because it'll be on the branch of a creek, and it's a lettuce. Like I said, a couple of plants are called that. I am not terribly fond of the raw leaf texture, though. It's not one I eat a lot, certainly not raw. Some people really enjoy it. That said, I have had more experience with swamp saxifrage because, I grew up half my life in the mountains, half at the coastal swamps. Left the mountains when I was 5, didn't return until I was like 15. So most of my formative years were really more in the swamps. And just not bad at all. And actually with that one, the raw leaves are better, and the tender shoots are really good. Pick them before they flower. The shoots are crisp and fresh tasting, and they're a really nice addition to a salad, or you can cook them, you can pickle them, and that's really good. But I do want to talk about shepherd's purse. Now, shepherd's purse is a very tasty wild edible, but it is most important aspect is medicinal. It's a fairly common weed. You can find it in old pastures, fields, along roads and pedestrian areas. It's called shepherd's purse because the seed pod has a unique triangular shape that's said to resemble the bag that shepherds once carried. Medicinally, the herb is super important for slowing and stopping internal bleeding, especially effective for excessive menstrual bleeding. And it's saved many lives. Whenever I have someone ask me a question, I have a friend, usually she's getting into her 40s and there's some excessive bleeding. And it can actually be deadly, especially if they're, ovarian cysts that are forming, and you can die from that. This is my go-to. There are a few other herbs I might use in an emergency, like sage if you have it on hand. But shepherd's purse has been an absolute lifesaver for many, many women. And, it would work for any type of internal bleeding. It could be a bloody diarrhea. It could be you coughing up blood. It was much used when tuberculosis was more common. But this is one, if you're a woman or you have a woman in your life, be sure to either grow or learn to harvest or buy some shepherd's purse and keep the tincture on hand because you never know when there might be an emergency. And a lot of the times these things can escalate very quickly. Remarkably quickly. As a plant food, shepherd's purse is used like many greens. Young tender leaves may be enjoyed raw and are very nice in salads. As they mature, the leaves become peppery like mustard. I like that. So it makes a really good pot herb, and it combines well with other such greens such as mustard and wintercress. Definitely a good vegetable to cook with bacon fat and a few wild alliums. Dressed with hot pepper vinegar. I mean, I'm going to go for that every time. That's what I grew up on. That's my taste. But shepherd's purse is actually more commonly used in Asian cooking than it is in American or European. I've seen it more as an ingredient to add flavor than as a main dish or a main ingredient. And I'm not an expert in any style of Asian cooking, but I've learned enough that I don't have to go to the nasty little Chinese takeout down the road, which is pretty awful, actually. There used to be a really, really good one, and now it's really dirty and really low quality food, and they don't seem to care at all. But usually when I just have a little shepherd's purse, I just toss some in with some stir fry or fried rice. And when I include it with fried rice, I'll usually add an extra egg because of the peppery flavor of the greens, and that complements the egg. I mean, like egg and watercress salads are very, very popular in England. That peppery taste with a boiled egg. In this case, we're doing basically scrambled eggs with the cooked grain, which kind of mellows it out a little bit. It goes well with pork, just like mustard greens. And I've read that it's traditional in certain pork dumplings, but I've not tried that. I'm not really a dumpling guy. I love pierogies, but most dumplings, it's not my thing. Pot stickers, okay. But yeah, I'm not the biggest dumpling guy. I'm a big noodle guy. And like I said, I love pierogies. But anyway, there's something about the flavor that's really complemented by soy sauce and fat. And I guess I'm like somewhat odd in that I like to eat soup for breakfast frequently. And literally, I have soup almost every day for breakfast. And I certainly have every day for the past couple of weeks. Well, and I'll tell you why. I love fermented foods. I love a lot of Asian fermented sauces and such. One thing I have not mentioned in my Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking, I didn't mention it in the Spring Foraging Cookbook either. And that's because it was not really available commonly in my area until the past year, and I'm really happy about it. It's miso. Now, I really like miso. Miso is a fermented Japanese bean paste. It used to be that I could only find miso down in like the Hickory area of North Carolina, or if I was in Georgia, I had to go to word Atlanta. I mean, I had to go somewhere where there was a large Asian community, and they would have Asian grocery stores. And Hickory, North Carolina, and several kind of regions around there, small towns, is I think the largest Hmong population in the entire United States. Hmong is sort of an ethnic group from the Vietnam, I think maybe even to Thailand area. They were sort of an ethnic minority. And when the communists took over China, uh, as many as could fled to America. And they really settled in North Carolina. You'll see some Hmong communities around, around Charlotte, large Vietnamese community around Charlotte, Fayetteville, but really, Albemarle. There's a small community up toward Albemarle, but really Hickory is probably the largest Hmong community in the world. I mean, in the country, actually, maybe in the world, because I mean, basically every Hmong that got out of there could before the communists came in and slaughtered them all. I mean, I don't know if you know much about the Vietnam War, uh, but well, the rulers, the king, and most of the officials in Vietnam were Catholic, and they were more loyal to the French. And when the French moved out, America said we would protect them. Kind of a common story, just like when we convinced Ukraine to give up their nuclear weapons and said we'd protect them. Well, the Chinese moved in and took over Vietnam, a horrible war. 50,000 American young men died in that war. After we pulled out, the communists, the Viet Cong, and essentially a front group for communist China, killed so many people they began to run out of bullets. They killed so many million innocent civilians, usually because they were Catholic, that they began to run out of bullets, and they would force someone to dig their own grave and then beat them to death with their own shovel. Really, truly one of the most horrible and shameful events in all of American history. I could put three big ones. You know, we could have defeated North Koreans, ended that war, but our State Department was infested with communists. This is a documented fact. First of all, they didn't warn the president when the communists were taking over China. That's been well documented that the communists in the State Department and the Pentagon were more allied with Mao than they were with the freedom-loving population of China. Then we could have defeated China again in Korea. We could have defeated North Korea. We essentially walked away and surrendered. The war has never ended. It's still ongoing, and it's heating up again right now. Vietnam was the first war we really decided to fight to a stalemate and sacrifice American lives rather than getting the job done and getting the hell out of there. Of course, we saw that again in Afghanistan and Iraq, where we just decided we're just going to sacrifice tens of thousands of American lives, spend billions of dollars, and then turn it back over and put it in the hands of the enemy. Hugely on display when we left Afghanistan, and Biden caused the most dramatic show of American weakness and stupidity in history. Well, anyway, going back to Vietnam, a lot of the Hmongs fled. A lot of the Vietnamese fled. So when you get to the Catawba Valley region of North Carolina, you have these huge Hmong communities. You have a lot of Vietnamese, some Chinese and Japanese and Koreans. So there are at least 7 or 12. I mean, there used to be more. I think some closed, but I think right now there are at least still 7 Asian grocery stores. And I used to have to go to Hickory to get my miso because you can make it at home. It's very, it's not a difficult process. It's a lot of Asia, South Asia especially, is hot and moist, hot and damp weather. So it's a 2-step process. You take what's called koji. It has different names. Koji, I think, is the Japanese name for it, but it's Aspergillus bacteria. And you inoculate rice. That rice has to be held at around, I think, 80, 85 degrees for 48 hours or so before it really starts to inoculate. It takes a few days. Then you put it in with your cooked beans. They usually use soy, but you can actually use other beans. And you have 2 stages of fermentation. The first is going to be bacterial fermentation, and the second is going to be a fungal fermentation. It's the same way you make soy sauce. Soy sauce is actually, in its most primitive form, just the liquid drained off of miso. There's a Japanese name for like the purer product. It's not coming to me right now. Shoyu. There you go. So anyway, this is the paste essentially that was left over from making soy sauce, and it comes in various varieties. And it used to be, if I went to a Harris Teeter in a larger town, I'd have to go to Boone or something, I could get just white miso, and it was pasteurized. It wasn't very good. This is a living, probiotic fermented food. It's delicious. Well, white miso is very sweet. It's not my favorite. It's good. I'll use it in a pinch. I prefer red miso. In the past year or so, for some reason, they started carrying good quality fermented, non-pasteurized miso in smaller grocery stores throughout North Carolina. And Lowe's grocery store, based out of Winston-Salem, is now carrying, I think, 3 varieties. I can actually buy red miso at a local grocery store without having to go hours away. If you live in a city with a large Asian population, you may take this for granted, but for me, that's just like super exciting. So for the past couple of weeks, every morning for breakfast, I take about a cup of water, and I just do this in the microwave. I mean, this takes me like 5 minutes, 10 at the outside, right? Cup of water, chop into it some green onion, mushroom, a little bit of ginger, salt, crushed red pepper, pop in the microwave for about 2.5 minutes till it starts to boil over, pull it out real quick, right? Depends on the power of your microwave, obviously. And you could do this in a pot if you don't like using microwaves. Well, pull it out, plop in there, I guess what, half a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon of soy sauce, just, a few dashes, probably half a teaspoon. I like to add just a little bit of fish sauce. I usually use a Thai fish sauce. That's optional. Some people love it, some people hate it. I kind of like it when combined with other ingredients. I like it better combined with other ingredients. I miss it when it's absent. It's almost like the vanilla you put in a cake. You know if it wasn't there. You don't really know if it's there, if it's balanced out real well. If you have it straight, it's disgusting. It's purely disgusting. I mean, someone once said it smells like butt, and it does, okay? It's really butt sweat. Disgusting. But a little bit of fish sauce in there, a little bit of apple cider vinegar, just like a few drops. It balances the sweetness of the miso, kind of just mellows everything out, brightens it up, really, more than mellows it out. And salt and pepper to taste. I think I already mentioned salt, so just pepper to taste. I got crushed red pepper in there. Thinking that's about everything. Pop it back in the microwave, let it go a minute or so till it starts frothing. It's about to boil over. Pull it out. Oftentimes I'll put some noodles in there, whether it's cooked pasta or just some egg noodles. If I do that, as soon as I put the water in the cup, I toss my egg noodles in there, let them soak cold while I'm chopping up my vegetables, mushroom, onion, ginger, and then, let them cook. Egg noodles in the microwave are done in about 4 minutes. The secret, though, is when you take it out, let the bowl sit for a few minutes till it's cool enough to eat. Egg noodles will continue to cook. So, but cooked pasta is just fine. Ramen, if you want to do that. Certainly rice noodles. They're done in the blink of an eye. You wouldn't even you would just put them in the bowl after everything's cooked. Well, anyway, just let it cool down. And when it's cooled a little bit, I take about a half to a teaspoonful, probably about 2/3 of a teaspoon of miso, and stir it into the soup. And it's just delicious. It's just absolutely fantastic. It's probiotic. It's good for your digestion. It's good for your liver. It's good for your immunity. And the flavor is just fantastic. Now, by itself, I'm not a fan, but used in as an ingredient, it is so good. It's often used in like barbecue sauces and such. I mean, there are different varieties of miso. Like I said, the white miso is kind of sweet. The red is not. It's a little more funky and a little more salty. So I'd back off a little bit on the salt using that. You can do so many variations with it. Before then, and the recipe I actually give in the book is one without miso. And what I did, this is more of a Chinese style, I just would make chicken or turkey broth, just from the carcass of a roasted bird. Lightly salt with some onions, black pepper, parsley, ginger, turmeric, cilantro is a great option. And in the morning, just make a soup out of that. A few mushrooms, and, that I would usually keep in a pot and just reheat every day. The miso soups are so fast and simple. I can make a 5-minute breakfast in the microwave. To any of those, you can add any herbs you like, anything you got in the garden. I mean, you can add turmeric if you want for an immune system. You can add parsley with cilantro. I already said that. Any alliums that are coming up, ramps, green onions, wild garlic, whatever. Any herbs you like. Seriously, that's coming up in your garden. Or, mint is actually really good in there. Marjoram is nice. Savory is nice. Anything. You can also add some of these peppery grains like shepherd's purse, mustard. That's all very traditional to Asian soups. This is not what I would consider, it probably is fairly traditional actually, but it's just something I threw together. I like this, I like that, this is the flavor I'm looking for. And it comes down to it that whether it's one made with chicken broth or whether it's made with miso or a combination of both. Another good thing to do with it is if you make rice wine, add the leftover rice wine after the fermentation. That's really nice. It's probiotic again. It's very high in protein. The aspergillus, the same bacteria you use to make miso, is also what you use to digest the proteins, well, the starches, the starches in rice to make a rice wine, like sake or shoyu or, no, wait a minute, Shaoxing wine. Any of the rice wines, even Korean, was that not non I can't remember how to pronounce that one, but there were different styles, and you can really play around with it, and that's really good. But there's something I just kind of put together, and if it costs 20 cents a bowl, that would really be stretching it. I mean, miso's kind of, depending on where you buy it, some of it's expensive ingredient, $5-6 a pound. That's really not too bad. If you do stock or broth, you're just using leftover bones or carcass. A few scraps of vegetables. I think this is like about a 10-15 cent breakfast, and it's so good for you. It really is. So if you find some shepherd's purse, be sure to try it when it's nice and tender. Be sure to try the soup. If you don't try it without the shepherd's purse, definitely if you have a woman in your life, you're going to want some shepherd's purse tincture on hand in case of emergency. I've had family members and friends that went from, things are a little heavy this month to like near death in the blink of an eye. Rush to the hospital, blood transfusions. You want to have this on hand. You really, really do. The only thing I just remembered from the soup, I left out one ingredient that I really like. It's just a few drops of sesame oil. Sesame oil gives it a really good flavor, and it's super good for the liver. Sesame oil is actually really cleansing to the liver, really soothing and anti-inflammatory to the liver. So this is a medicinal soup. A lot of Asian herbal medicine, there's a whole school of it in China that focuses specifically on medicinal soups. Now, what I described is more of a Japanese style soup, but everything in there, the alliums, ginger, mushroom, the miso, the hot pepper, the sesame oil, it's all medicinal. I love having soup for breakfast. Now, I don't always do that soup. I've given you my various fisherman soups recipes. I've given you my French onion soups recipes. Egg drop is one I like to do a lot. Hot and sour, going back to more Asian. Make up some minestrone. I mean, there's nothing like a bowl of Italian wedding soup or minestrone on a cold morning. Lentil soup is a staple. Whenever I have chicken broth and onions, what's easier than making a lentil soup? Love it. I would, most Americans eat sugary cold cereal for breakfast. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm not a cereal guy. If it's there and it's the only option, I'll eat it. I'd much rather have bacon and eggs, sausage. But really, I prefer that a little later in the day. I'm more of bacon, eggs, and sausage, ham, a good hearty grits, shrimp and grits, anything like that. I want that more around 10 or 11 o'clock, early lunch, maybe even for lunch. First thing in the morning, my stomach just doesn't want a lot of food, and a bowl of soup is ideal. It's just, I'm telling you, if you've never had soup for breakfast, give it a try. And I love this one because you can throw in any of the wild greens we talked about, any of the asparagus-like plants we talked about, any of your edible flowers like nasturtiums and violets, anything will go in that soup. And you can have it, vary it and have it different every day. And like I said, if you can't find miso, do it without miso. If you have no sake lees, do it without sake lees. I don't always have. I make a batch of rice wine every couple of months, usually, so I usually have some on hand. They're excellent for pickling vegetables. Really, the leftover rice at the bottom. Again, you mix it with a little bit of miso. White miso is what you use in this one usually, and it gives you that and salt. And you salt your vegetables and you kind of cover them up there. You let them pickle in the refrigerator, and if you like sort of a half sour, half sweet pickle, like my grandmother used to make, which I love, you probably really love pickles made with rice leaves and miso. You'll be very surprised. And again, those are like throwaway ingredients. It's just great to do stuff like that. I just love exploring new flavors and especially not wasting food, finding uses for everything. All right, so now let's get into our medicinal. And as I said, it is citrus trifoliata, or bitter orange, but we're going to talk about various citruses here. Where I can, I'm going to focus on bitter orange or hardy orange. Where I can't, I'm going to fill in with more information on citrus. Now, of the bitter orange, Miss Grieve tells us it is a small tree with smooth grayish bark and branches that are spread into a fairly regular hemisphere. The oval, alternate green leaves, 3 to 4 inches long, have a spine and a calyx. You can look it up. You know what an orange looks like, an orange tree. Well, I hope you do. If not, just pull it and Google it. It's no big deal. The first mention of oranges appears in the writings of Arabs. Now, this is oranges in general. And manner of their first cultivation, Europe being uncertain. No one knows when they were first grown in Europe. Certainly, a few hundred years ago, they were growing citrus in Spain and Mediterranean areas around Greece and Italy and France. Long tradition of like Seville oranges and such. The volatile oil of the bitter orange peel is known as oil of bigarade, and sweet orange oil as oil of Portugal. So yes, they were growing a lot of citrus in Portugal. Orange oil was one of the most difficult to preserve. Most satisfactory method being to add 10% of its volume to olive oil. I did not know that. But yeah, I've used it that way before. I've had orange oil diluted with olive oil as a cooking ingredient. I know some people use it in liniments and such. So yeah, okay. Flowers yield by distillation an essential oil known as neroli. Now that's still very popular as an essential oil, which forms one of the chief constituents of eau de cologne. Yes, it's used both in colognes and in aromatherapy and essential oils. Any way you would use that. A pomade is also obtained from them by maceration. Pomade is a hair treatment. Hair. Okay, did you ever see Old Brother, Where Art Thou? Not a big fan of George Clooney, but I gotta admit, I love the Coen brothers. The same guys that did Fargo and King of the Hill and all that. Old Brother, Where Art Thou is like in my top 5 movies of all time. Of course, that's the culture I grew up in, following Doc Watson around the mountains of North Carolina. I know or got to meet probably 90% of the people on the soundtrack of that album. I know every song by heart, and it's absolutely hilarious. Well, you remember Everett, that was the George Clooney character. He has a certain pomade, Dapper Dan, that he uses to slick his hair down. That's what a pomade is. They used to be very popular. Now, really hard to find. Probably, 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, when I was playing rockabilly music. I did a lot of punk rock and rockabilly. And I had a pompadour. I had to slick it back. It was so hard to find a pomade. I found one called Monkey Grease, which I really liked, and they discontinued it. Never could find any Dapper Dan, but I'd wear, the bowling shirt, dark blue jeans, cap toe Oxfords, hair slicked back, put on my Telecaster, and go out there and do some. We were really good. We were really good. It just hit at the wrong time, If I had been doing that in like the late 90s when bands like the Stray Cats were still around, of course they started in the 70s. Brian Setzer has had some health issues recently, but he was doing more big band music, I guess, around by 2000, but still we were hitting. If I'd hit about that time, it would have been huge. Flat Duo Jets from Chapel Hill, awesome band. Reverend Horton Heat from Texas, oh man, can he smoke a guitar? There was a little rockabilly, punk kind of style rockabilly, alternative country, whatever, rockabilly revival right around late 90s, 2000, more late 90s. And if we had hit then in Athens, Georgia, I'd probably be a big star today. But of course, then 9/11 happened, and really in the early 2000s, the entire music industry changed. They killed country music in Nashville. Everything became, Nashville became all about little blonde pop singers. who shall remain nameless right now, right? And they got rid of all country music. They got rid of all punk rock. They got rid of all alternative rock, anything that was indie. They got rid of record stores. They got rid of independent radio stations. MTV just started showing reality shows instead of music videos. I could go down the list. They killed music right around the year 2000. The last big phase was, I guess, grunge in the 90s, and then that kind of alternative, retro punk, country, whatever, big band. It was all kind of getting mixed together. People wearing bowling shirts and slick bottom shoes and having, a good time. And yeah, if I had hit back then, we would have been huge. But yeah, everything changed after that. And then, of course, the financial crash of 2008, and then we went through COVID that closed down most independent music videos, bars, and coffee houses and everything. Hopefully we'll recover from it someday. But the environment that, if you're a baby boomer or a kid from the 70s and 80s, like I am, listen to the show and you remember growing up and there was like live music every Friday and Saturday night somewhere in town. And there was a record store, and there was a really cool radio station with a real live DJ that you could listen to. Basically, all that's gone. It really, we went through long periods there, 9/11, '08 financial crash, COVID, where it killed the industry. The independent music, not the industry. The industry is still making millions off of pop garbage, Again, pretty little girls with hardly any clothes on playing electronic music and singing through a machine. No, they and the reality shows that also really impacted. But anyway, that's what a pomade is. The largest Bigarade, I guess is how you pronounce it. Anyway, she said that's that one form of the orange. Is to be found in the south of France in Calabria and in Sicily. And Sicily's been known for its orange and lemon production for centuries. The center of the industry of neroli oil is south of France, where the bitter orange is extensively cultivated for this purpose alone. She gets into how to grow the tree. Don't need to cover that right now. Extract the oil by distillation, same way you would use to make an essential oil. Let's get down to medicinal properties. Medicinal actions and uses. The oil is chiefly used as a flavoring agent, but may be used in the same way as oil of turpentine in chronic bronchitis. It is a non-irritant to the kidneys and pleasant to take. Now that's cool, because kidneys are irritated by turpentine, by juniper, several things like that. If you think sort of piney smelling things, so that would make the orange oil a much better alternative if someone needs to use such an oil like that without irritating the kidneys, like if you have weak or inflamed kidneys. On the continent, an infusion of dried flowers is used as a mild nervous stimulant. It kind of perks you up a little bit. The flowers were hugely popular around 1900 when they started growing. They had been growing plenty of oranges in Florida, but the railroads were now bringing fresh fruit all over the country. They could also bring the fresh flowers. And there was a good period there from about, say, 1890 to 1920 where a bride would not have a wedding without orange flowers. They were just like essential. Had gone from being they were a status symbol, basically. If you were going to, and a sign of celebration, and you'd see them at holidays, and perfumes made from the oil were very popular. And that was, for better or worse, that was really a nice period of American history when it come in terms of the way flowers and fruits were used. Before then, pineapple had been the biggest of the Victorian era, like status symbols and celebratory vegetables, fruits. To the point that pineapples used to cost about $10,000 a piece. Seriously. They had to be imported into England from the Bahamas. They could not grow at that point in Europe. Only the very wealthiest had them, and they would display them as an ornament. They really weren't even eaten. People would actually build greenhouses. The first greenhouses, the big ones, the big glass houses in England and parts of France were built to grow. This is pre-French Revolution, so we're talking still, royalty in France. They were built to grow pineapples. They were called pine houses, and the fruit would sell for thousands of dollars a piece, to the point that they would rent pineapples just to be displayed on a table in a fancy home that was having an event. Well, orange flowers somewhat had that status at a much lower price, much lower price in America in the Elizabethan through, 20s, 1920s, Jazz Age, that kind of era. And they'd often be combined with gardenia. You would have orange flowers and gardenia, and I still remember that from like my great-grandparents. That great-grandmothers, they would use, orange flowers and gardenia. There were also various things, like you would have a cedar-lined closet. You'd have rose oil to help keep the bugs out of your clothes and to scent them. Those would be in drawers. So there are various, scents that I remember from my childhood at my great-grandparents' house. Both sets of my great-grandparents lived to be almost 100. So as a kid, I actually got to experience, an age that had long passed. People born in the 1890s and right around 1900. And that is a very specific scent that I remember, orange flowers and gardenia, and it's a heavenly smell, without a doubt. If you've never smelled it, you gotta smell it at least once in your life. And of course, there'd be a lot of pineapple that was still popular, and they loved to make pineapple ice cream. That was our dessert on hot summer days, was homemade, hand-churned pineapple ice cream. And oh man, and banana ice cream too. That was my grandfather's favorite, I believe. Man, you cannot imagine. A lot of people have never even experienced homemade ice cream. Oh man, you imagine being down in southeast North Carolina. It's been a 110-degree day with about 100% humidity, and you're sitting on the like a breezeway, a back porch. My grandfather and his father too, they both would plant certain like weeping willows and trees at various levels, so you got a nice cool breeze coming across the covered back porch in the summertime. And you're sitting there eating homemade pineapple ice cream with the dogs milling around your feet, licking up the drips that drip on the floor, and cats as well, because we kept cats out back. Gosh, what great memories, what phenomenal memories, and what flavors, what smells. I can just imagine right now. Okay. Good times. All right, so powdered bitter orange peel should be freshly burned over burnt lime. The sweet peel is better as a tannic than the Seville. Okay, I'll go ahead and give you another tip right now. A lot of people are very wasteful when it comes to citrus peel. Citrus does have medicinal value. One thing I like to do around Christmas time is, for friends and family, I make variations on limoncello. Limoncello is an Italian liqueur made from lemon peel. It's actually the zest of the lemon. It's so easy to make. You can make limoncello with orange, lemon, grapefruit if you want to. Certainly, tangerine. I made a big batch of tangerine this past Christmas. I think they were actually clementines. Mandarin oranges, whatever you got. Blood oranges, Meyer lemons. Oh, that's good. Meyer lemons, key limes, all is just wonderful stuff, right? When you look at an orange peel, most of us just peel the orange and throw away the peel and eat the orange. Don't do that. Never do that. Save all your orange peels. You can keep them in the fridge for a few days. You want to catch them before they start drying out. If you do this right away and just start collecting the zest, you're going to be better off. You can use a lemon zester, or I often use an OXO type peeler. It's a big fat vegetable peeler. The handle, and it's got just that V-shaped blade. Try to take off just the outside of the peel, not getting into the white pith. So if it's orange, you're looking to have all orange. If it's lemon, all yellow. If it's lime, all green, etc. Right? Take that and go ahead and just drop it into a quart jar of vodka. Each day, or a couple times a day, or every other day, as you eat a piece of citrus, zest it. Put the zest into a quart jar of vodka. Once that zest has sat in that quart jar of vodka for about a month, it will turn the color of the zest. It will have extracted all the aromatic qualities. It also extracts some medicinal qualities of the zest. You're essentially making a tincture of orange or lemon or tangerine or whatever. The way you now, it's actually kind of good as a digestif, or a little something before a meal to help stimulate digestion. Just take maybe a half shot of it, just straight. It's somewhat bitter, but it's very aromatic. Like Angostura bitters are an orange zest based bitter. So you could think about it that way. You can certainly use it as a bitters. To make limoncello, you then you strain out all that lemon or orange or whatever zest. Take the clear liquid, which is going to be bright orange or bright yellow. It's absolutely beautiful. Combine it with an equal amount of simple syrup, which is nothing more than equal amounts of water and sugar. Like a cup of water, cup of sugar, bring it to a simmer, dissolve all the sugar, let it cool down. You'll then have about 2 cups of simple syrup. You would add that to 2 cups or a pint of the extracted citrus zest, and that becomes your limoncello or orangecello or whatever you want to make. People love it. It's a little sweet for my taste, so it's something more that I give as a gift, or I might mix it with a little straight gin or something that actually makes a nice little cocktail. It's really very good. But you still have this leftover lemon or orange or whatever zest, right? Don't throw it away. Again, do not throw it away. Before you mix everything together, you've made your simple syrup. Take the zest that you've now strained out of your vodka, put it in the simple syrup. Let it simmer in there for about 10-15 minutes, then strain it out again. That will put even more of the citrus flavor into your simple syrup. It makes for a much better limoncello. That's really like the difference between like sort of good and really good. But now you have lemon peel or zest, or orange or whatever, that's saturated in sugar water. Spread that out on a sheet pan. Put it in your oven at a low temp with the door just kind of cracked, and let it bake until it dries and it becomes crispy. It is so good. Candied peel, again, coming from a partially French family, that's something that features commonly in French desserts. It's a good snack. It's something that you would actually pay a lot for in a store, especially if you take that peel and dip it in dark melted chocolate. It's fantastic. Try it. You will love it. Candied peel goes excellent with mint if you want to make cookies or something. Never throw away your citrus peels unless they're blemished, unless they're starting to rot. But you can get medicinal value. You can get a wonderful, delicious beverage. You can get that secondary dessert or snack, because they're really not that sweet if you just have them plain. Dip them in chocolate. They become like a top-notch garnish to any dessert or something to snack on their own. And they're so good, again, for making cookies. You can put them in cakes, chop it up, mix it in with your icing, ice a cake with it. Top-notch stuff. Really good. And again, it's one of those things people usually throw away. If you ever saw the show Futurama, you might remember the character Dr. Zoidberg. he discovers one day that the rich people eat caviar and chicken livers and all this, and he's like, now I understand, the rich people eat garbage. But it's true. Most people throw away the most expensive ingredients. Fish roe, caviar, yeah, most people throw it away. Never do that. The roe of almost every fish, except for the barracuda. You don't want to be eating barracuda. Probably pufferfish would fall in that line. They're actually toxic, the roe is. But anything from a bluegill to a bass to trout, all of your saltwater fish, the roe is fantastic, and so is the spelt in the male fish. And in America, that just, you got your fish, you throw it away. If you have chickens or cats, maybe they're lucky enough to get the scraps. Some of that, the innards of the fish, are among the very best parts of the fish. Shellfish, clams and lobster, especially your larger clams. The liver is very good. I mean, we throw away more good food in this country, and then I don't know. It's really a shame. We probably throw away more than most any other country. I know the English can be very conservative in their food. The Canadians can, but still they eat blood pudding. We don't eat a lot of blood in America, believe it or not. Um, they don't throw away pork blood. Think that's crazy? Um, it's very controversial, but in most countries where they raise horses to ride them and to use them or to as race horses or to use them to pull wagons or whatever, when that horse gets old, they don't just wait for it to die and bury it. They go ahead and put it out of its misery and butcher it. And in many countries, horse meat and horse mane fat, especially, is considered an absolute delicacy. In America, it's illegal. Why? I don't know. But people say, "Ooh, that's disgusting." People put up these signs, "Would you eat this?" And I'm like, well, yeah, why not? I mean, it's considered a delicacy in other countries, but we have these certain enculturated food biases. Now, I'm not going to eat a dog or something, I'm not saying you should, or your house cat. But, for instance, bobcat. Bobcat's really good meat. Why wouldn't you eat a bobcat? You should eat a bobcat. Otherwise, you'll be killing your chickens. I knew a girl down in South Carolina. Cute little thing. She wasn't more than about 4.5 feet tall. Her at about 18 or so. I mean, maybe no, it was younger than that. She was probably about 17. Her boyfriend, she got pregnant, and he got into drugs and was arrested. And she ends up with two little boys, and she was only about 18, 19 when I met her. And she was trying to manage a farm and raise two children. And anyway, she just became a friend, and I'd offer advice on gardening or whatever I could. And one, day she calls me up frantic. Something had killed her chickens. And I said, well, it's probably a raccoon or a possum. And so here's what you need to do. And I taught her how to trap raccoon and possum. And I said, there's also a possibility it could be a coyote. So this is how you set a coyote trap. Well, first night she caught a couple raccoons, and she was thrilled. She butchered them up, and that was meat for her family. That was meat for herself and her children that she had lost to those raccoons that killed her chickens. So she was thrilled. She was so proud of herself. She couldn't, little thing, this is, and not a real, country girl either. She's learning everything and experiencing, and she was proud as could be to have trapped a couple of raccoons and figured out how to dress them out and cook them. And, you may think that's gross. She didn't. She was really proud of that. Third night, she caught a coyote, a great big, like 80-pound, probably 120-pound coyote. And she went out and shot it, and she's like, I don't know what to do with it. And she couldn't get a hold of me right away, so she called a local game warden. And he's like, I really shouldn't tell you this, but you might be able to make a little extra money. It's not illegal to sell the fur of a coyote. It is illegal to sell the meat as food. And she's like, why would anybody eat a coyote? And he's like, well, there is this Chinese community down the road, and they come from a culture where dog meat's a thing. They're really crazy about coyotes. And you could sell them the fur, in quotation, for, this amount. And what they do with the meat after that is none of your concern. And she's like, oh, wow. And so she calls this guy, and he comes up and pays her like $75. And they were thrilled. And he's like, I'll buy all the coyotes you can trap. And yeah. So anyway, take it with a grain of salt. I know where I draw the line. You may draw the line somewhere very different. I eat basically everything that swims in the sea and in fresh water. And most of what walks on the land and flies. Some things I have my biases against, specifically house pets. But, your culture may be very different. I'm not going to judge on that regard, as long as you do things humanely. That's the main thing. Animals should never be mistreated. So, plants for future states of medicinal use of bitter orange. The thorns, and it's very thorny, just like a lemon tree, are used in the treatment of toothache. Now, I imagine that's an abscess, and they would use, ancient peoples now would use it to pierce the abscess and drain it. I don't think that's something we're going to be using today, unless you're in an emergency situation, survival situation, which you could find yourself. The stem bark is used in the treatment of colds. The fruits contain a number of medicinally active constituents, including the flavonoids coumarins. Coumarins have that vanilla-type scent, one of the reasons the oil smells so good, and various alkaloids. The fruit with the endocarp and seeds removed is carminative, means it helps settle the stomach, gets rid of gas and cramping. Deobstruent and expectorant. Deobstruent means clears obstructions. It is used in the treatment of dyspepsia, or upset stomach, constipation, and abdominal distension. Stuffy sensation in the chest, prolapse of the uterus. It has an astringency. Rectum and stomach. It is milder in effect than the immature fruit and is better used for removing stagnancy of food and vital energy in the spleen and stomach. The unripe fruit is antidiuretic. That means it helps with diarrhea. Antiemetic, antispasmodic. Antiemetic means it helps against nausea, by the way. Antispasmodic means cramping. I think you got this now. Deobstruent, digestive, diuretic, laxative, stimulant, stomatic, and a vasoconstrictor. It is used in the treatment of dyspepsia, constipation, and abdominal distension, stuffy sensation in the chest, prolapse of the uterus, rectum, and stomach, and for shock, interestingly. Again, volatile oils, like people used to use smelling salts and such. So there we go. That's going to wrap up our bitter orange. And I think we'll call it quits there today. It's been a wide-ranging and interesting show. I hope you've gotten some good medicinal tips and some great recipes. And we'll make good use of them. Remember, you can probably grow some kind of citrus where you live. Definitely check out Sepp Holzer. That's Sephol, I think it's Zer. Dude's a legend. Absolute legend, and if you need to learn to grow citrus in cold and high elevation areas, maybe you can find some tips. Otherwise, greenhouse, container plant, bring it in the wintertime. You can probably figure something out. Dwarf citrus grows really well in big containers. So, anyway, y'all, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.